Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Leppy Duels Week 15. I'm your host, Jacob Arvidsson, and we are once again presented by JRV Media. Thanks to all you guys at home who are hanging out with us this week. Excited to have all of you with us. Here's how the show works. In a moment, you will meet our 4 distinguished guests. Each of those guests are going to go 1v1 versus the other 3 contestants. Within each of those duels, each contestant will have 1 minute, sometimes a little bit more, to deliver their points on the assigned debate topic, along with an additional 20 seconds, also sometimes a little bit more, to deliver their rebuttal and respond to their opponent's comments. After that is complete, I as the host will determine a winner of each duel, and the first one to fill up their scoring bar wins the episode. Simple enough, let's meet the cast for this week. First up, returning to defend his championship from last week, he's the captain of Team Discraft Underground and the winningest panelist in Leppy Duels history, Mr. Wes Shinovar. Second, taking on Wes in the first round, he's the owner of Crew 42, Zach O'Haran. Third, joining us from Emporia, Kansas, once again, the brand manager at Latitude 64, Mr. Seth Fenley. And finally, rounding out the cast this week, a perennial member here on Leppy Duels, the brand manager at Great Lakes Disc, Brian Papa Wolf Frawley. Thanks for joining us, all 4 of you. Excited for you to debate the topics we've got in store for you tonight. First up, Zach and Wes. Wes, you will be up first. You're debating Manibu Kajiyama. He's rated 1051, coming off a fresh tournament win. He's the Japanese national champion yet again, and also officially the highest rated player on the planet right now. So my question to you is that 1051 rating fair? And does he deserve to be the #1 player on the planet right now? And follow-up question to that also, where would he place if he were to show up at a stacked tour event here in the United States right now? Wes, take it away.
Yeah, this is a super interesting discussion because the rating debate has been had many a times. How accurate are they? And it's, of course, in relation to the field. So I really think that if you look at the tournaments that Manibu has played, he's played a majority of tournaments in his home country. And so I think his game is just extremely well suited for the courses that he's playing. I think that, 1051 is no joke. He's obviously a very skilled player, but if we look back at 2019 Worlds, he averaged about 1031, which at the time was the same as his rating. And then you kind of got to go back to 2017 to find the last time that he was really playing on U.S. soil very much. He finished 9th at a NTE, 38th at Worlds. So he had a 30-38 at Worlds, and then a 4th at Delaware, which was only 1014 rated, so a 4th even shooting a little bit under his rating. But I don't think the 1051 is very accurate. I think if we saw him here, we would probably see him be kind of in that 1030 range, like 1030 to 1035, somewhere in there. And I think that would probably put him in the top 20 golfers at a Disc Golf Pro Tour, which is filled with the best disc golfers in the world. So I think he's a top 20 player, but I think 1051 is maybe a little bit high.
All right, Zach, what's your take on this one?
Well, look, the answer is that he is the highest rated player in the world right now because, as Wes stated, the rating system is a comparison of yourself to the field you're playing against. What we're seeing him do in Japan is that it's like we have Kevin Durant playing in Euroball. He's just dominating and he's dunking on everyone. And because of that, because of who he's playing against, his rating is showing how much more he's winning compared to the field he's playing against. So is he the highest rated player in the world? The answer is yes, he is. He just is because he's dominating who he's playing against. Now, where that turns into the Pro Tour, there are some questions that go on there. So you talked a little bit about, 2017 being him, in the United States. He was here up through 2019 playing in the PGA Worlds. He's on Central Coast. He's been in the United States quite a few times. I looked back in his history and looked at at events where he was playing against other touring pros, especially if they were like high quality pros, and comparing them to how he played with them. And looking at those fields, other than his one European Open when he was like 20 years old, 21 years old, where he placed third, he really kind of goes in that mid-cash, lower cash range. So if we're looking at him today at 37, I'm going to say he's probably lower to like the last cash section. He's getting up in age. He's probably not going to be shredding like his rating would indicate that we would see.
Okay, so let's take that end of Zach's statement there. Wes, respond to that. You had said he's top 20 in your mind. Zach is saying definitely lower than top 20. So respond to that, Wes.
Yeah, I mean, it's a little bit of a crapshoot. He's obviously a really skilled player. He's been around for a long time. The man knows how to throw a disc extremely well. 1050 rating, whether it's in Japan or over here is absolutely no joke. But, I think that his rating probably equates to, like I said, somewhere in the kind of the mid 1030s right now. If he's playing well, maybe he has a weekend where he shoots into the 1040s and kind of cracks up into that top 10, top 15 kind of range. But I think if you sort of took him as a 1035 rated player and you look where those guys finish, it's generally somewhere kind of in that 20 to 30 category at the big tournaments like Pro Worlds, where you have the best players in the world and a massive field. So, in my mind, if I was going to predict where Manibu would finish at Worlds this year, I would probably say somewhere around 30th, which is well above Last Cash. I think he's a little better than that. But yeah, somewhere in that 30 range for me.
All right, Zach, bring this home. Can you win this duel?
Yeah, I just don't agree with that, and for two reasons. One, the last time he played in Worlds was in 2019. He took 30th there. He played very well considering he had a pretty rough first round. That was 4 years ago. I mean, he's up in age. He's 37 right now. No indication looking at his more recent rounds because he hasn't played as often since COVID. That he's been able to keep up that 10, like he's playing in the Kyoto Open, averaging 1074. He hasn't been doing that since COVID. I don't see him coming into the United States playing Worlds and doing what you're saying, averaging 1040 to get to that top 30 spot. We see the field in the United States just up, up, up. It is. I don't think he's matching that. I think he's on the downtrend in his age and his play, and I don't think he'd be there. He's going to be in Last Cash competing in there. Maybe he has a good weekend, but I don't think he'd be there consistently.
All right, so strong takes from both of you guys. You both had your opinions. I can't argue with either of them. Obviously, we don't have a whole lot of stats to back it up, and he hasn't been over here in a couple of years. However, Zach, I liked your Kevin Durant comparison in Europe. I think that was cool that you went there. That was unique. The reason I'm going to give you the edge in this duel, though, Zach, is the end. I think it's important to note with Manibu that the number of rounds, rated rounds that he even has in the past couple of years are minimal, and keeping that high rating up only takes one fantastic performance at one event like he did a week and a half ago. So for that reason, I'm going to give Zach the win here. Sends us to duel number 2. We've got Brian and we've got Seth. Seth, you're going to be up first. What is the impact of disc golf officially being given the go-ahead and added to the 2025 World Games? Take it away, Seth.
Yeah, I think it's a step in the right direction, but I don't think that it's something we should hang our hats on yet. The reality is that it's been in the games before and dropped. It's also been, it was an exhibition game last year in Alabama, and so we know that there was at least enough interest to bring it back, right, and give it status. And so the issue here is that the format's really not ideal. There's only going to be 16 countries if they even sign up represented, and it's going to be a male-female doubles pair of some sort. And so it has the potential to not create really compelling golf, though it also has the potential to create compelling golf. It's a format we've never really seen before, so that's going to raise some questions. And I think ultimately the other thing that does make it pretty cool is that it's going to be in China, which gives us an opportunity to help spread disc golf to another country.
Awesome stuff, Seth. Brian, where are you going with this one?
Yeah, I think the impact's going to be tough to measure, but I think that we're going to see an impact from this. You know, there are more eyes that are going to be on the sport, which is always a positive thing. You look back at curling, made its debut in the Olympics in 1988. It wasn't that popular, but over the past 35 years, we've seen curling become one of the most watched portions of the Winter Olympics. I think disc golf has an opportunity to be like that. And to kind of do some better points for Seth in China, Yukon is a major production company producing discs there. They produce for Discmania and for Prodigy and other companies. This is a real opportunity for them to showcase their brand and expand what they can do in, I would say, more the Western world. I'm worried that there's only 13 courses currently on UDisc, so hopefully that's something to do with the Chinese internet and not allowing certain things to pop up. But let's be positive and let's see some good views.
All right, 2 different takes for the most part. Seth, respond to Brian's comments and bring this one home for yourself.
Yeah, so I think the other thing to really sort of nail home here that hasn't been fully talked about here is that there's just sort of this assumption that there's going to be views, right? And so first off, there's the questions about like what it means to try to broadcast things out of China. The secondary side of this too is that because it is the World Games and not the Olympics, broadcasting rights in and of themselves are a little murky. I know that there are entities within disc golf working towards getting some sort of media agreement to be able to broadcast this, but they don't have any guarantees. And if we can't watch it, then I don't know how much of an impact we can measure outside of what is happening in China itself.
All right, interesting take there from Seth. Brian, bring this one home for yourself.
Yeah, I'll hammer Wes's point to be my point even better right now. It's okay if we don't get to see it. There's 1 billion people in China. 1/8 of the world's population is in China. Let's expose more people that way to disc golf. That's the impact that we're going to see. We're not going to grow more here in the States. We might, oh well, but in general, we just went to a nation where we can expose our great love of sport to a large, literally captivated audience.
All right, again, 2 unique takes on the impact here, and I liked both of them from both of you guys. Brian, I love that you brought in Yukun discs. That's an interesting aspect to this. Maybe they get some more exposure out of this. Seth, I like where you went with the viewership thing, and I think at the end of the day, to make the biggest impact, yes, you do technically have a captive audience within China, but I think you talking about the broadcast restrictions possibly and a lot of gray, murky area there, I think is really important because the people without access to that immediate area where the game is being played are going to have to view it somehow. So for that reason, I'm going to give Seth the win here in duel number 2. Sends us to duel number 3. Brian, you are back up. You're taking on Zach. You were tasked this week with taking on a creation of a new stat. So what do you got for us, Brian?
All right, shout out to Disc Golf Twitter for coming in with this answer or this question a few weeks ago. I really appreciate all the wonderful responses. First of all, unanimous that we have more casual disc golfers than competitive disc golfers because the number 1 stat people cared about was beers drank on the course. Little BD star in the corner. Probably can't do that for sanctioned. But Andrew Presnell gives us a great example. He would like to see a stat where it's circle 2 misses or makes divided by circle 1 misses. So a great stat would be like 1.0. And he says that this is going to show, like how fast or how good, a player is playing recently. Statmando responded to that tweet, said something's coming down the line. And then a few days later, they announced that circle 3 with Nate Sexton stat. So, I like to see the more stats. I think we're going to have to focus on more putting stats because that's really where you're going to get the most data.
All right, Zach, what do you got?
Well, I'm going to go in a different direction here. I'm thinking we want something along the tree density index. And so what I mean by that is if we take an intended line and measure 20 feet perpendicular to that intended line and count the number of trees that are within that distance, you can even give point values as trees that are closer to the intended line versus farther away. It gives you an idea of evaluating holes on courses as seeing their kind of woodedness and how difficult it makes it for players. And the reason I like this is because it lets us do a couple things. One, it allows us to get more accurate predictions because as we see players perform on holes that have wooded index numbers on them, so we know that they perform better in the woods or better in the open, we can kind of compare, see what they're doing or which one they might be favored at courses. It also helps us evaluate player quality so players can use that information. Man, I should really be working on my tight lines, wooded action versus open because I have power. I'm doing well there, but not so much here. And it also allows us to, if we decide to ever change the rating system that we have right now, the PGA, having something like this where we can determine the difficulty of a course by looking at its wooded index number might help us calculate that maybe. So it has some value there as well.
All right. I love both of the takes. Defend your stat. Why is it better than the other ones, Brian?
I think mine is a raw data that's accurate that anyone can take, and Zach's is a um, eye test at best stat. I mean, we all see it on the live broadcast. This is a wooded hole. It's going to have a tough line. Oh, look, Nate Doss said that and repeated it out loud 3 times, and then someone hit a tree. Like, we can kind of judge how dense a forest is visually. Having a stat that could pop up like, this is the percentage of circle 2 misses minus or makes minus the circle 1 makes, allows the viewer to see how a player is shooting and gives them a more raw look.
All right, Zach, quantify your stat for us. I'm interested in this too. How are we measuring it in your mind if we're implementing it?
So first of all, I want to respond to Brian's thing. Half the time, your stat's going to say undefined. Because if Andrew Marweed hasn't missed a circle 1 putt, you can't divide by 0. So it doesn't matter. So we're sitting here looking at a bunch of undefineds while Ricky's hot, and until he misses one, we ain't got nothing at all. Second of all, when you say to the eye test, I'm going beyond that. It is no longer an eye test. We have a measurable stat perpendicular to the intended line to determine how wooded a hole plays. And that's a value here so that when someone's saying, wow, this hole is really wooded, it's not that anymore. This hole is wooded by a value of 0.4 or 1.7 or however you want to give that number. That number is a specific value. This one is 1.7. The next hole is 1.9. It is a more wooded hole according to the intended line. That is specific data. It is just as accurate as your one you're stipulating, except mine won't be undefined at any time.
All right, I love you finishing out the duel there, Zach, with shots fired that Brian can't respond to. So that's good stuff there from you. And I'm actually going to give you the edge here. I like that you brought in the undefined thing. You're kind of making fun of him a little bit because the stat is a good stat at the end of the day. But for that reason, I think I'm going to give you the edge here. And I think the tree thing's an interesting idea. And in theory, we should be able to calculate it. It'd take a lot of work, but on paper, it should be doable. So Zach takes the win here in duel number 3, sends us to duel number 4. We've got Seth and Wes. So a couple of days ago, Disc Golf Valley, which is the big game, came out with some new updates that I'm sure Seth knew were in the works for a while. But we're talking about Nintendo releasing a little preview and teaser for their own new disc golf game, True Disc Golf. So are you guys excited for True Disc Golf? We've got Seth up first.
Yeah, so I'm honestly not excited, and I have a few reasons why, and none of them include that I'm more of a fan of Disc Golf Valley. The first is that this, if you go back just to the next post before it, it was made in 2021, and it said coming in May, and then nothing was posted again until 2023. So as of like May of 2021, it wasn't released. We don't actually know if this is some weird like May Fool's joke. They're like trying to make April Fool's a thing in May, or if it's going to actually release. The second is that I got confirmation earlier this week that they haven't consulted any of the stakeholders that they've put into the game. So we saw in the previews that Winthrop Arena is one of the maps or one of the courses in the game. They haven't talked to the USDGC. The USDGC did not sign off on that being used. And from what we can tell, the Lake Eureka course that is also in the game is being referred to as Lake View and not Lake Eureka for probably obvious reasons. And so for those two reasons, I'm really not that excited.
Very interesting insider information there from Seth. Wes, what's your take? Are you excited for the Nintendo game?
Yeah, Seth gets all the fun inside scoops. That's disc golf biz for you. I actually am excited to this, and I think I've talked about this a number of times, but investment and eyeballs are two things that disc golf absolutely needs right now. And with Nintendo getting involved, you know, even if this is just a game, we're going to assume, for argument's sake here, that it is going to come out. The preview looked pretty good. It looks like they kind of have a product rolling. So I think that this is going to continue to expose new people and especially a younger generation to disc golf, which is so important. And I think as you're getting that younger generation, you're getting more people into disc golf, and you're starting to look at the prospectus of disc golf over the course of time. These kids coming up, the number of players growing, that's going to bring more investment into the game. So I think Nintendo getting involved is a really good thing for disc golf generally on a multitude of reasons. And call it Lakeview, call it, the Winthrop sky level course, call it whatever you want. It's a disc golf game that's going to bring new eyes and new fans to the game, which I love.
All right, good stuff from both of you. We've got a no, we've got a yes. Defend your point, Seth.
Yeah, so I want to bring up one clarification to start off with. Nintendo Switch isn't actually creating this game, right? This is a game developer in Finland who is putting a game into the Nintendo Switch world. So it's not even something that's supported by Nintendo Switch. They have disclaimers on their website stating that. Second is that there's only 4 courses that are going to be released in this game. But more importantly, they claim that they have 6 manufacturers that will be represented. I can tell you another piece of insider knowledge. We haven't been discussed on that. The only advertising we've seen is Discraft and Innova. And if any indication from the USDGC team gives us any insight to this, it's quite possible that both Innova and Discraft were not consulted on the usage of their disc image and likeness in the game, which could potentially lead to this game not even making it past its first few weeks of iteration.
All right, Wes, bring this one home for yourself with your yes.
Yeah, I think you could just throw those things out. I don't think Discraft or Innova even need to be involved in this game for it to be a success. I think that, if you look at Wii Bowling didn't have any of the bowling manufacturers, and how many people absolutely loved Wii Bowling when it came out and spent hours and hours playing that silly game. I think that this is similar for me. I think it's an activity game that people can enjoy regardless of what manufacturers are involved, and I think that if you get enough eyeballs playing this game, enough downloads, or whatever the number works out to be, the manufacturer will start to get involved. Similar to the upgrades with Disc Golf Valley, bringing the Macbeth discs and the Macbeth Foundation into the fold. The game's been tremendously successful. It's a lot of fun, and so I think that this is similar, regardless of the manufacturers. As long as the game happens, having a disc golf game that's widely playable is going to be good for the sport.
All right, awesome stuff from both of you there. Interesting takes. Obviously, Seth's got the insider information, but Wes, I do love how you responded to Seth's comments there at the end, saying, to be honest, it doesn't really matter if Innova's involved, if Discraft's involved, because we just need eyes and people enjoying the game in and of itself. So I'm glad you said that. However, I think Seth's point initially about, hey, their last post was 2 years ago, and we have every reason, because of the insider information he gave us, to say, hey, that might be happening again. This game might not actually be a thing that ends up happening at all. So for that reason, Seth, I'm going to give you the win here. Sends us to the next duel. Wes and Brian, you guys are up. Brian is up first. Talk to me and all the rest of the people here about the biggest factor for you when deciding what tournament you want to play. Brian?
The biggest factor for me is always fun, and most of the time fun has to do with my friends, but most of the time my friends are the TDs. So in a roundabout way, I pick based on what TD I think is going to provide me the most fun in some sort of way, shape, or form. But efficiency is a huge and giant thing for me. The reason Wolfpack Disc really started running events is because we were sick of going to events that were more festival and not competition. And they were getting out at 8 or 9 at night, and I wanted to go home and see my wife and have dinner. So we started to run some more efficient events. That's something that's really important to me. If you tee off at 10, I'm not coming to your event. I want to be teeing off at 9. I love you even more if it's 8. If your players pack is trophy only and I'm getting 1 to 1.5 times the value, I'm in. Let's go. If your players pack is a DX disc and a towel and you charge me $25, I am 100% not coming back to your tournaments ever again. Thanks for playing.
All right, so tee time, start time, and player pack options and payouts are driving Brian's decision here. Wes, what's your biggest factor?
Yeah, for me, I run my local club here, so I'm involved in a lot of our events, a lot of Great Lakes events as well, and I help organize and maintain those to make sure that they're high-quality events. So when I'm looking at events that I want to play, similar to Brian, I look at who's running them. I look at kind of the fairness of player packs in relation to the entry fee. Are my deductions for the player pack fair? Are the payouts good and just? And for the most part, a lot of people do that, but there's definitely some TDs that are notorious for not doing that, taking out too high of deductions. I do not play those events, but I also love going to at least 1 or 2 of the bigger events throughout the year. something like a Ledgestone or a D-Glow. I do enjoy a little bit of the festival feel of those bigger tournaments once in a while. I don't think every single tournament needs to run until 10 o'clock and have a fly mart and all that jazz, but I do think those are fun once in a while. So similar to Brian, I think fairness, if I got some friends playing, that's great. But yeah, just making sure that there's a good competitive level, good competitive field, and that it feels like it's a fair tournament.
All right, fairness and competitiveness, says Wes. Brian, you're hitting hard on the start time. You want to be home at the end and the value that you're getting. So separate yourselves on those points.
Yeah, I think it really just comes down to the quality of the TD. If they're providing a great players pack and they're running an efficient event and they're doing it in an efficient course and they're offering the right divisions and all those things line up, that's something I look at. But let's also be adults. All of us are really busy people, and sometimes we just have to swing in an open weekend and say, all right, I'm going to go bite the bullet and take this tournament. And it's not always the best, and sometimes you get surprised and meet a new TD you like. So get out there and try one.
All right, Wes, how do you win this duel?
Yeah, I think that Brian and I are both kind of bougie amateur players, so so we have some similar points. But I really just want to hit on the fairness of the entry fee and the payouts. I think that that's something that we do really well, and I know that's something that I hear criticism of other TDs, especially for newer players. We've got a lot of new guys in disc golf over the last 2 years, and they're starting to learn kind of who those TDs are that are taking out $25 or $30 for a player pack disc instead of $15, and then letting more of that entry fee go to the payouts. So I think that the fairness on the deductions and the payouts is really a big factor, and I think it's becoming a bigger factor as time goes on here, and these new players are getting more and more educated.
All right, well said from both of you guys. TD and fairness, all very important. I love it. Because neither of you has a chance to win this episode, I'm going to go ahead and give you both a point, just to make you feel good. No one's getting skunked today. So Wes and Brian both score in duel number 5. Sends us to, which is essentially going to be our tiebreaker for the day, Seth and Zach. Zach is going to have the floor first. You guys are tackling a hypothetical situation. If you were advising a top 200 player in the world, at what point are you telling that player to skip the tour and focus on, more of a local tour for, financial reasons or whatever? What's that line that you're drawing for them, saying, hey, if you're below this line, you should be staying home and staying local? Zach?
Yeah, so I think there's 3 things to consider here, because we're talking about top 200, not top 100, not top 50, right? We're talking about these players that are between 150 and 200 who are trying to work their way up in the rankings. When it comes to the rating itself, there's only one thing that really matters, and it's, can you use your rating to get into the events? If you can't, then obviously play A and B tiers because you're not ready to go. If your rating is high enough, then you can get into the events. The other question that kind of tiers from there is, does your game translate at all? Can you throw bombs? Can you shred in the woods? If you can't, you probably shouldn't go anyway. Then the other parts that we need to consider are, how are you trending? If you're the 200th player and you're not trending upwards as going up those rankings, you probably shouldn't be touring. You probably need to figure something out in your game. Also, we need to make, like you said for a moment there financially, your expected value and going on tour. How much money are you willing to lose instead of staying locally, winning $250 every weekend at your local B tiers, C tiers, maybe some more your A tiers, and having a part-time job at the same time? How much money you're willing to lose as you're trying to climb through the rankings is really relevant in your decision making.
All right, Seth, what's your take here?
Yeah, so I think that there's a little bit of overlap that Zach and I will have, but the one place where we're going to digress is that I'm going to basically tell any player in the top 75, get your tour card. Why? Because they actually get a tour card. Anyone under the 75 mark is not guaranteed a tour card, and so then they have to do this ratings race that Zach's talking about. At that point, I think it's an easy discussion of, is it better to play in your local region, or is it better to try to be on tour? And I think there's 2 things to consider here. One, Zach talked about briefly, and that's about the money and the eyeballs, right? And so if they're able to catch eyeballs better on tour, then they should stay stay on tour. I'm talking specifically about players like Greg Barsby or Nate Sexton, right? Like, these guys haven't finished in the top 75 in previous seasons, but they're out there still grinding. And then the other thing is that they need to have really at least 2 years on tour before they can start considering where they are when it goes back to Zach's trending point. So those are the things that I would consider with a player.
Okay. Similar, like you said, Seth, similar takes from both of you guys. Can you separate yourselves at all on your points and draw a line in the sand? Let's make it more specific. If a certain player has been on tour, like Seth said, for at least 2 years, what line are you drawing in the sand for them and kind of taking a stance of, yeah, you should be staying home or you should definitely be on tour, Zach?
Yeah, I kind of already answered this in the sense of that where are we trending, right? We see local players already making these decisions, right? Reed Frescuro was on the tour. He's playing. He's doing really well. His game kind of takes a step back. He's not doing as well. He comes back to Holland. He kind of does some local stuff. He does some training. He gets himself back where he needs to be in shape, goes back on tour now, is trying to get back on tour, trying to get his game back to where it was. Tim Barham was an elite player, got injured, came back, played locally, and then he's like, okay, as he's getting healthier, he's like, okay, I'm going to play again on the tour. I did really well there. I took some cash. Okay, I'm going to keep playing. Great. I'm trending upwards again. So as long as the player is in that area and they're trending upwards, go for it, right? Continue to keep doing that as long as you're trending upwards. But if you're going down, if you went back on tour, you can't cash, you can't do nothing, then it's get back to your local events, either develop or just stay at the A, B tier level.
All right, Seth.
Yeah, so there's 2 reasons why I win tonight. The first is because the benchmark that was decided on for this rebuttal was a point that I made. And so we see here that I have the winning argument already. But the second is because I give you a concrete decision maker after the 2 years, and that's the top 75 getting a tour card. After 2 years, I'm telling a player, hey, you get a tour card if you're 75 and above. I don't care about your trend or where you're sitting below that 75. You should probably go back, play locally because you didn't make the cut to get a tour card, and then reconsider coming back on tour after that.
All right. Seth is taking shots at Zach there to finish this out, already proclaiming himself the winner. Here's my take on this. Zach, I think your trajectory comment is perfect, but not specific enough to answer the question necessarily. I think your examples were great. But the specifications weren't necessarily there. Seth drew a line in the sand, said, hey, after 2 years, if you're not tour card worthy, go back home, work on your game, try again later. So for that reason, Seth, I'm giving you the win here on episode 15. You've got the stage. What do you got for us?
Yeah, so this past weekend, I went to the OTB Open. The OTB Open had something that they're claiming they're the first to do. I'm not really sure if it's true or not, but they had an entire section of their Fly Mart set aside for technology in disc golf. I want to talk about some of the cool things that are coming to disc golf, specifically the Tech Disc. Michael Sizemore, this is free advertising for you. So the Tech Disc is a new piece of technology. It gets attached to the bottom of a disc. It is permanently attached. This isn't something that you can take off or put back on. It's permanently attached to the bottom of the disc. And what it does is it connects to your computer via Bluetooth, and it measures the speed at which you release the disc, the revolutions per minute at which the disc revolves. It measures hyzer and wobble, so how smooth your shot comes out. And what it's going to do is it's going to allow players to figure out how to improve their game, how to improve their shots. And it's one of the many different pieces of technology that I got to see at the OTB Open that I think we should all be getting excited about. Some other brief highlights are a new app coming out in the fall called Pured that's going to be built around building community on disc golf courses. Looks to be pretty cool. And then there's also another disc golf coaching program. I think it's called discgolf.ai that is helping people look at their form from a different angle than just a disc release point. And so to wrap it all up, Tech Disc is taking pre-orders right now for release in July. They are $300 retail, but that gets you lifetime access to all of the technology that you need to and go out there and improve your game. So technology in disc golf, it's some cool stuff coming down the pipeline. Be looking out for it.
Awesome stuff, Seth. All you guys at home, I hope you took that to heart. really cool stuff coming up from the technology side of the sport. Go check it out, give it a visit, and look into it for yourself because it's really cool stuff. Seth, I'm glad you brought that up. That's awesome. Congratulations again to you for winning episode 15. Zach, Brian, Wes, well done. Zach, you gave us a battle tonight. We love that. Thanks for being on the show, all four of you guys. Appreciate you guys a lot. All you guys at home, thanks for being with us. Have a great weekend. We'll catch you all in 2 weeks. Have a good night.